Thank you, Howard.
Thank you, Kevin. Can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
On June 22nd, 1941, I was in a summer camp. It was a Sunday. About 3 o'clock in the morning, we heard some noises, and we found out that the Germans had attacked Russia. They brought us back to our hometown, which is Kaunas, Lithuania. There were about 160,000 people at that time, and about 40,000 were Jews. Right away, the Jews started running away from the Germans. We knew the Germans didn't treat the Jews very well. We didn't know they were going to kill us, but we knew they didn't treat us very well. So most of the Jews started running away. You can't imagine the situation, the chaos. The Germans were advancing, the Russians were retreating. There was no authority whatsoever. We did not have any public transportation. So either you rode a bicycle, rode a horse cart, or walked. My mother, my father, older sister and I, and a younger sister and I, and thousands of other people were walking. The German airplanes came down, started strafing us. So maybe sometimes you saw movies where refugees are running away, but unless it's real pictures, if they're staged, you can't imagine the situation. We got about 35 kilometers from our hometown. We stopped for the night. We got up the next morning, we found out that the Germans had dropped parachutes up the road, and we were cut off. So we went back to our hometown. The Lithuanians were very anti-Semitic. They still are. Before the Germans even came in, they killed between 8,000 and 10,000 Jews. One day they were your neighbors. The next day they came in, robbed you, raped you, and killed you. For no other reason, because you were Jewish. When the Germans came in, they passed right away anti-Jewish laws. You could not walk on the sidewalk. You could not go to the cinema, go to the park, use public transportation, go to the library. You had to walk on the road, you couldn't walk on the sidewalk. If you saw a German soldier, you had to take your hat off. In other words, what they're trying to do is dehumanize you. If you're not a human being, they can do with you whatever they want. Any German or any Lithuanian, if they didn't like the way you looked, or walked, or acted, could just kill you without any repercussions whatsoever. No consequences. Jewish life was worthless. And in Lithuania, they picked up Jewish men and Jewish women off the street and took them up to the 7th fort. Kaunas had 10 forts built around the city during the First World War. In normal times, they were used to house prisoners. Just took them up there and shot them, killed them. On July 7th, 1941, the Germans passed a law that all Jews had to wear the Star of David, the yellow Star of David, front and back. Now they had no problem recognizing who's a Jew. So Jewish men and Jewish women disappeared from the streets. They had to send the kids out to get the foodstuffs. They had a curfew Jews could not be on the street before 10 o'clock in the morning or after 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Finally, they decided to put all the Jews in the ghetto. They picked the poorest suburb of the city, called Williampool in Lithuanian and Slobodka in Jewish. There lived between maybe 8 to 10,000 people, two Jews. The Gentiles had to move out and Jews had to move in. They picked the poorest, the most awkward suburb of the city. There were no sidewalks, no sanitary sewers, and 30,000 people had to move in. So it was very, very crowded. But they had a problem. They had the main roadway running right through this little suburb, and we didn't have many roadways to begin with. They couldn't shut it down. So what they did, they had the Jews build a small ghetto on one side and a larger ghetto on the other side, connected with a wooden bridge over the roadway. The small ghetto had about 6,000 people. The orphanage, the hospital, the old age home, were all in the small ghetto. On October 7th, 1941, the Germans decided that the situation wasn't so good. So they boarded up the hospital, all the patients, doctors, nurses, visitors, set it on fire, burned everybody to death. They took the rest of the people up to the 7th fort and shot them. Men, women, and children. When we got into the ghetto, the Germans had actions. They called them actions. They took everything away from you that was of any value. You had to turn in all your, if you had any gold, silver, money. If you had Russian money, you had to turn all the money in except 100 rubles. All electrical appliances, all radios, anything of value, any collections, fur coats, anything of any value you had to turn in. And if they searched your house and they found it, just kill you. In other words, they wanted to dehumanize you, they wanted to kill you. In September 28, 1941, the Germans decided there were too many unproductive people in the ghetto. They everybody assembled on an open place, called them a quarter place. There are two men, one SS man named Walker, one SS man named Jordan. And you came before them, and they looked you over. They decided they could get some work out of you. You were young, strong. They sent you to the left. They thought you were too old, too sick, too young. They sent you to the right. They took 10,000 people up to the 7th fort and shot them, killed them, men, women, and children. Afterwards, there was lots of room in the ghetto. In February 1942, they took 500 men and shipped them up to Riga, Latvia. It so happened that they took my father up there too. And the reason they shipped them up there is because the Latvians were also very anti-Semitic, and the Germans had killed all the Jews up there, and they needed some slave laborers to work in the airport, to build up the airport. In October 1942, they came around, they asked for more volunteers to be shipped up to Riga. Usually we don't volunteer for anything, but my mother needs my father was shipped up there, so she volunteered. So my sister, my older sister, my younger sister, and I, and my mother, and about 500 other people were shipped up to Riga. That action that my mother took maybe saved my life. Didn't save my mother's lives and my sister's lives, but maybe it saved mine, because that camp up there was run by the German Air Force, by the Luftwaffe. And it was not as rough a camp as camps run by the SS. They had a farm up there, and they asked for volunteers to work on a farm. I volunteered to work on a farm. You could always get an extra slice of bread or an extra potato, extra carrot. And the work was not as hard, taking care of animals instead of working on the airport. The life in that camp was not too bad till the summer of 1943, when the SS took over our camp and things got pretty rough. That's when they took all the people that were not working and they shipped them to Auschwitz. That's when I lost my younger sister. Had I not been working, I wouldn't be here. I probably would have been shipped to Auschwitz too. In the spring of 1944, the Russian front got pretty close to us. So they shipped us back to Lithuania, to a war camp in Lithuania. From there they shipped us to a ghetto in Lithuania. And in June 1944 they shipped us to a concentration camp Stutthof, which is close to Danzig on the Baltic Sea. And there they separated the men from the women. And that's the last time I saw my mother and my older sister. I stayed with my father. The next day they shipped out a transport workers to concentration camp Dachau. I wanted to go with my father, but evidently I was too short. They wouldn't let me. So they cut me off. I spent the next 6 weeks in Stutthof, and those were the most horrible 6 weeks I spent in any camp, because we didn't do anything. We were about 200, 220 boys between the ages of 12 to maybe 16. We slept in the barracks, maybe to house 75 or 80. There's 3-tiered wooden bunks. If we didn't have room in the bunk, you slept on the floor. We were guarded by 2 kapos. Kapos were overseers that took care of barracks. Every barracks had some overseers. When we got into Stutthof, they took everything away from you, cut your hair off, made you spread eagle, searched you thoroughly, made sure you didn't hide anything, gave a uniform, a striped uniform, with a number and a colored triangle. The triangle signified what you were in there for. The Jews had yellow triangles, political prisoners had red triangles, homosexuals had pink triangles, and criminals had green triangles. And those 2 kapos had green triangles. We knew they were in there for criminal activity. They stood every morning by the door with sticks and hit you. If you happened to sneak by, they'd give you twice as much. Now, every prisoner had either a piece of wire or a rope to hold your pants up. And you had a little cup or a little bowl made out of metal, and that was your lifeline. If you didn't have that, you just didn't eat. They chased you out in the morning about the 7 or so. They gave you some coffee, called the Satzkaffee, substitute coffee, made out of burnt straw, slice of bread, piece of margarine, and you sat in the sun, doing nothing. Till about 11, 12 o'clock, they gave you a bowl of soup. They called soup made out of weeds and a few floating potatoes in it, a slice of bread. We sat in the sun again. Till about 5:30, they repeated the process. And they chased you back in the barracks. Now I have a friend here, we're from the same hometown. He went to school with my elder sister. We went to all the camps together, we were liberated together. And we wanted to get out of there in the worst way. Because we knew one day they were going to come and take us to the gas chamber. Finally, they were short for transport of slave laborers for concentration camp Dachau. So we volunteered to go ship to concentration camp Dachau near Munich. From there they shipped us to Außenlager. Dachau had 10 sub-camps, war camps. We were shipped to camp number 10, about 500-600 men. We built a factory from the ground up. We manufactured concrete beams, 40, 50 feet long, reinforced with steel, that the Germans were going to use to build underground airports in the Tyrol Mountains. The work was very hard. We worked 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. At the beginning, the food was not too bad. We got soup twice a day, and a loaf of bread divided by 3 people. But towards the end of the war, the Germans themselves were short on food. They gave us soup once a day, and bread divided by 10 people. And the person that divided a loaf of bread got the last slice, made sure he divided it evenly. We slept in the barracks. I don't know if you can call it a barracks. You can imagine just a roof laying on the ground, no walls. There was a ditch dug in the middle, and we slept on either side on wooden boards with straw and blankets. 25 people to a side, 50 people to a barracks. We had a little wood-burning iron stove in the middle of the ditch to keep us warm. Even though it's far in Bavaria, it still gets cold in the wintertime there. It still gets below freezing. We did not have any sanitary facilities in the camps except some cold water basins and some toilets. In April, middle of April 1945, the Americans got pretty close to us, so they marched us back to Dachau. Took us about 2 days to get there. When we got there, the situation there was very chaotic. We saw some railroad cars with dead people laying inside the cars and outside the cars. It was very, very bad. Evidently, we must have been the best looking specimen that came in there because they gave us a shower, and the next day they took us, about 2,000 other prisoners, and some Russian prisoners. We didn't know there were Russian prisoners in Dachau, in camp there. They marched us out. They gave us a small loaf of bread and a can of meat. A can of meat like that we haven't seen maybe in 2-3 years. If you were a smart prisoner, and most prisoners I think that survived that long were pretty smart, the first thing you did, you ate it. Because then nobody can steal it from you. First couple of days we were marching in the daytime, guarded by assessment with German Shepherd dogs. The American planes came over, started strafing us. We started marching at night. No food, no water. If you couldn't walk, you fell down or you lay down. They stuck the dogs on you. The dogs started biting you. If you didn't get up, put a bullet in your head. That was the end of you. Finally, on May 1st, 1945, they marched us into a little ravine, surrounded on three sides with little hills. And we saw some machine guns on those hills. My friend and I said goodbye to each other because the Germans had told us, 5 minutes to 12, we're going to get rid of you. We're not going to leave you alive. We said goodbye to each other. But we woke up the next morning. Evidently, the commander of the transport decided not to kill us. Maybe he wanted to save his own skin. So they marched us out again, marched us about 30 kilometers or so, marched us in the woods. We stayed there overnight. We woke up the next morning on May 2nd, 1945. We were covered with about 2 inches of snow. And all the guards had disappeared, all the dogs had disappeared. They all disappeared in the night. 2 old German soldiers started drafting them towards the end of the war in the 60s, marched us about half a kilometer in this little village called Wachkirchen. And about 1, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, we saw some tanks coming on the road with white stars on them. We didn't know Americans had used white stars, we knew the Russians used red stars. The first tank that came into this little village was very dirty. But when it left, it was very, very clean. Because people were crying and kissing it. It was very, very emotional. It's like being born again. The Americans were very good to us, maybe a little bit too good, because they gave us chocolates and sea rations and hamburgers. Not having eaten so long and being so emaciated, people overate. And naturally, if you overate, a lot of people died. And my friend and I, we were in and out of hospitals about 2 years afterwards. My friend decided to come to the United States in December 1947. I stayed in Germany. I keep getting letters from him, how wonderful the people are here, how great this country is. So I decided to come to, and I came here in August 1949. In June 1950, the Korean War broke out. My friend got drafted into the United States Army. I didn't want to get drafted, so I joined the United States Air Force. I served for 4 years in California. I married a woman from Milwaukee in 1951 while I was in the service. We've been married 57 years. I have 4 children. I have 9 grandchildren. And I can tell you one thing. On May 2nd, 1945, when I awoke, if I could have written my own future, I don't think I could have done a better job, because life has just been wonderful. There is staple food in the camps was bread and potatoes. Towards the end of the war, the Germans themselves didn't have any food. In the last camp where we were, those area of the war that gave us bread were called, what we called smoking bread. Was smoking bread. The bread was so moldy that when you ate it, green smoke came out of your nose, but it tasted good. I don't think anybody here in the United States knows what hunger is. Maybe they know it in Africa and Darfur, other countries, but here in the United States, nobody knows what hunger is. I know sometimes some of you get sick, you don't eat for a couple of days, and when you get well, you say, oh my God, I'm so hungry, I can eat a horse. Well, I did. When they were taking us from this woods to this little village, there were some dead horses laying on the side of the road. The prisoners jumped on them, picked them clean. By the time I got to it, there was nothing left. I took a rock and broke the horse's head and ate some of the marrow, which tasted very good. Potato peelings, grasshoppers, snails, very good tasting. I could probably stand here and talk to you about that for a couple hours until I could not convey the feeling that you have when you're hungry. It's not a natural human feeling. In the last barracks, in the last camp where we were, this barracks, the Germans did not have any refrigeration. So in order to keep the potatoes from freezing, they'd have ditches in the ground, lined it with straw, put the potatoes in it, cover it with straw and dirt, and every day they used to take out so many potatoes to feed themselves and the prisoners. One of the ditches got full of water, and the potatoes rotted. Everybody knows how rotten potatoes smell like, horrible. Well, I risked my life, got out at night, got some of those rotten potatoes. The potatoes were so rotten you didn't have to peel them. The skin was that far away from the meat. All you had to do was break the skin open when you had the meat of the potato in your hand. My friend and I were making potato pancakes on this little wood burning stove. At the same time, there were prisoners that were lousing themselves. Now you know, unless you take a shower every day or change your clothes, you accumulate lice. And lice live on only one thing, human blood. Now either you got rid of the lice or the lice got rid of you. If you had a scratch or a wound, the lice would congregate there and would actually suck the blood out of you. So in order to get rid of them, you took your coat off or your pants off. Lice usually congregate in the seams of your clothing. And you run the seam of your clothing on top the little stove, either the lice will jump off or perish. Anyway, you got rid of them. I saw something that I can't get out of my mind. I saw a dead man actually move. Nothing unusual to see dead people. You were just happy that you weren't lying there. But I saw a dead man actually move. He was so covered with lice, it was actually eaten up by him. The lice were moving, they were actually moving the body. Something I could never forget. The life in the camp, or life in the concentration camp was horrible. I can't convey to you the feeling you had when you were in there, because it's not a normal human feeling. It's a feeling that I don't know how to describe it. It's you're hungry, you're tired, you don't know if you're going to be alive the next minute. It's a horrible feeling. I don't think anybody can describe it. I don't care if you read, no matter how many books you read or how many films you see, you cannot imagine what kind of feeling it is. It's the most horrible feeling you have. I would like to open it up for questions now. If you have any questions, what I would want you to do is stand up and speak up, because my hearing is not as good. And if I can answer a question, I'd be more than happy to do it. Any questions? You know, some people ask me if I hate the Germans. I don't hate the Germans. I don't hate the Germans. I don't hate the Ukrainians. I don't hate the Lithuanians. I don't hate the Latvians. I don't hate the Slovaks. I only hate the perpetrators. They did it. I have nothing against the sons and daughters. In fact, my friend was in Hawaii in 1985 for a vacation, and he met a German couple. He's a doctor in a prison. And they were talking, and he told them we were in Germany, and he said, well, if you ever come to Germany, come and visit us. So in 1988, my friend and his wife, and I and my wife, we went to Germany. We wanted to see where the camps were. The one camp was not there. The Dachau was not the way we remembered it, because the barracks were torn down. They put a substitute barracks up to show what it looked like, and the famous sign that says Arbeit macht frei was in a sign on the side of the camp. You had to look for it. And we stayed by those people for about 5-6 days. And we told them, if you ever come to the United States, come and visit us. So in 1982, they came here. They stayed with us for about 6 days or so. And we still correspond with them. I have nothing against them. I buy German products made in Germany. Yes, I do. I go to Aldi's, I go to Trader Joe's, and the products are good, I buy it. So I have nothing against them. I only have something against the perpetrators that did it. Do you have any questions?
What was the first thing that you ate?
You have to speak up a little bit.
What was the first thing that you ate when you got out of the camp?
The first thing that I ate? Well, I actually don't remember, except for the horse meat. But the Americans gave us very good food. I mean, they gave us hamburgers, they gave us cereal rations, chocolate, which we hadn't seen in 4 or 5 years or so. So everything we ate tasted real good. I still have a habit of eating fast. I know when we go out for dinner or anything, with my wife or family or friends, I'm always the first one to finish eating. And I usually clean my plate. I don't leave anything on the plate. I eat everything. Maybe it's my disposition. Maybe it's my, I don't know. Maybe I acquired it when I was in the camps, but that's the way I do it. Any other questions?
When you were in the concentration camps, did you just think about...
Could you speak up a little bit?
When you were in the concentration camps, did you just think about what it'd be like when you come out and survive? Be able to tell your story and what it was like? Did you ever try to imagine that you were?
Did you ever think that you were going to make it? Did you really, like, if you had to bet, do you think you would survive?
Well, I wanted to survive. I didn't care if I would have died maybe 2 minutes later. I would have been very, very happy. I wanted to survive. I wanted to sit under Hitler. But there were some people that gave up. Didn't want to live anymore. They couldn't take it. I saw some people jump on the electrified fences. In the fall 1941, I went to work at the airport. Most people in the ghetto went to work at the airport because we built up the airports for the Germans to expand it because the Cardinals had a small airport. And I couldn't go to work as a man because I was too short. So, the European women are usually shorter than the American women are. So I put on my mother's dress and I went to work with my mother and my older sister because they gave you better rations when you worked at the airport. We were unloading railroad cars with, I think, gravel or sand, and they were taking empty ones away and bringing full ones. And I saw a man, maybe in his mid-20s or so, jump off the platform, put his head on the rail, railroad car came down, cut his head off. He just gave up. He didn't want to live anymore. I had a friend here. Well, I had a friend, he just passed away a couple of years ago. We're from the same hometown, we were all the camps together. He was an economics professor at MIT in Massachusetts. He told me a story about his uncle. When the Germans came in, they asked for 500 prominent Lithuanian Jews to come forward because they wanted to compile a list of all the craftsmen in the city so they can help them during the war. Actually, it was a lie. They wanted to get rid of the leaders of the community, but then you can't have an uprising. They took the 500 people out to the edge of town, made them dig ditches, they're going to kill him. His wife found out about it. She went to some prominent Lithuanians and practically got him out of the grave. He came home, hung himself, and left a note saying, I do not want to live in a world where one human being can be so cruel to another. He just gave up. He didn't want to live anymore. I was just the opposite. I wanted to live. I wanted to see the end of Hitler. Maybe that's what kept me alive. I don't know. It's possible. Any other questions?
Did you ever try to escape, or like anyone ever try to escape from the area?
Did you ever try to escape? Right? Well, in the ghetto you could escape, but you had to have somebody on the other side to help you. Because the first Lithuanian or first German that would recognize you as a Jew would turn in, that was the end of you. The way people escaped, people formed partisans. There were woods about 100 kilometers from my hometown, and young people escaped there, and with the help of some Lithuanians, went to the woods, formed partisans, and they harassed the Germans, blew up rail lines, and we did harass them. You could escape, yes. In the concentration camp, you couldn't escape. If you were in a different country, like we were in Riga, actually we did not have any barbed wire around our camp. We just brick walls. We lived in an old brewery. You could escape. I mean, you could just walk over the wall, but you didn't speak the language, and if anybody recognized you as a Jew, they threw you right in. So that was, in fact, in 43, when the SS took over our camp, a young man escaped. They caught him, brought him back, had everybody assemble, and they practically beat him to death as an example not to escape. So you could escape, but most of the time if you escaped, you probably committed suicide. Any other questions? Don't be afraid to ask. I'm more than happy to answer.
Did you ever have any good times in the concentration camp?
You were having good times. Not very. The only times we had good times is when we found out that the Germans were losing the war. Actually, the great one in the camps was very, very good. In July 1944, we were in Stuttgart, and we knew that they tried to assassinate Hitler. Without any radios, without any newspapers, without anything. We knew that they tried to assassinate Hitler. So the great one in the camps was very good. I mean, the knowledge in the camps was very good. What went on the outside. I'll tell you a story about my friend, and he had a sister the same age as my younger sister, and when they were running away, the mother put a little girl in a horse cart, and the girl was about 6 years old, and the German planes came down, started scraping us, the horses took off, and she couldn't find the little girl anymore. Blue-eyed, blonde hair. She wound up in a ghetto about 80 kilometers from her hometown, all by herself. In the next country of Latvia. There was a woman there, a Latvian woman that worked for Jews. She spoke Yiddish, and she didn't have any kids. She found out there was a little girl in the ghetto, an orphan. She told her husband to go in and tell him that there was his niece, that she got lost in the war. So they let him take her out. The woman saved her. After the war, the little girl got married. They came into the States in 1985. She considered her a mother. Now, I was in the same camp with this little girl's mother. I know she found out that her little girl was saved. How she found out, I don't know. But she found out that the little girl was saved by a Gentile woman. I knew that my father was in camp number 2, and I'm sure he knew that I was in camp number 10. How I don't know, but we knew that what went on from one camp and the other. Any other questions?
What was the worst thing you ever saw?
What was the worst thing you ever saw?
The worst thing I ever saw? Well, I don't know if I should tell you that, because I had some feedback from some people that said that people had nightmares when they were taking the people, the 10,000 people to be shot. The roadway went right next to the ghetto. There were some women with some babies. They knew where they were going. They tried to save the babies. They tried to throw them back over the fence in the ghetto. And some of the babies got caught on the fence. Can you imagine the mother's anguish, the mother's terror, the mother's horrible feeling? Seeing the baby on the fence until a German soldier or Lithuanian came down and put a bullet in his head. It was horrible. It was the most horrible thing I ever saw. can never forget that. Any other questions?
How did you feel when Hitler killed himself? How did you feel when Hitler killed himself when you heard it?
How did you feel when Hitler killed himself?
Well, I didn't know Hitler killed himself. I was in the hospital after that. I was actually in a camp when he killed himself. He killed himself on April 30th, I think. He killed himself. At that time I was probably on a death march. So, but it was too good for him, I think. Any other questions?
When you eat now, do you look at food differently still?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Like when you eat now, do you look at food differently?
Do you look at food differently today? Like, do you still eat potatoes?
I still do, but yes, I look at food different. Yes, if I go to like a buffet or anything, I usually don't take more than what I can eat. If I don't waste any food. I think it's horrible to waste good food. It's because there are millions of people that are very hungry, and I try not to waste it. And I eat potatoes. Yes, I eat potatoes. I eat bread, and I enjoy it very much. I enjoy every bite of it. I do. Any other questions?
Howard, you know, you said your younger sister went to Auschwitz, right?
Right.
Do you know what happened to your mother and your older sister?
Well, I found out after the war, my mother and my sister were in Stuttgart. And I found out people that were with them. In January 1945, my mother got sick. Naturally sick people to take him to the crematorium, to the gas chamber. So they were taking my mother to the gas chamber. And my sister said, if you're taking my mother, I'm going with her. So she went with her. Evidently, if my sister wouldn't have gone with her, maybe she would have survived too, because she was a young girl. She was about 17 or so. So my mother and my older sister gassed in January 1945. The only survivors, my father is the only survivor. Any other questions?
Did you ever get injured?
Yeah,
Were
what?
you ever injured? Like, you mean they hit you?
No, if I would have been injured, I was beaten, but not injured. If I would have been injured and not been able to work, I wouldn't be here. Because people that didn't work, they took them back to Dachau or to other camps, and they just gassed them. They didn't keep you around unless you were healthy and working for them.
Can you describe a gas chamber?
Pardon?
Can you describe a gas chamber?
Can you describe a gas chamber? No, I can't, but because I was never in one. Because if I would have been in one, I wouldn't be here. I read a few articles about the gas chambers that they were actually, they put people in there, maybe they packed them in there, whatever they could get in, maybe 100, 200, and they put cyclone gas through, they had a hole in the roof, they put cyclone gas down, and 15, 20 minutes later, all the people were dead in there. And then they took them out, and they brought them up to the next level, where the crematorium was, and they burned them. They burned all the bodies. Any other questions?
Do you ever have any flashbacks?
Do you ever have flashbacks, or does it still haunt you today, I guess?
I don't have any psychological problems. I have some friends here that are a little older than I am. They have psychological problems. They can sleep nights. They're maybe because I was so young that it didn't affect me that much. And maybe because I'm such an optimist that I try to look everything on the positive side instead of the negative side. I look at everything, the glass is half full instead of half empty. Maybe that's why it doesn't affect me as much. But I never had any problems sleeping or interacting with other people. No, I never did. Any other questions?
How much did you weigh after the war?
How many people are here 14, 15 years old? Oh, quite anybody weigh about 50, 55 pounds? No? Well, that's what I weighed when I was liberated. I was 14 years old, and that's what I weighed. So you can imagine what kind of shape we were in. A lot of people died that didn't make it because I don't know how I survived. I don't know. It's one question I can't answer. Any other questions?
Did you get to witness a mass grave?
Did you ever see like mass graves? Was the question. A mass grave?
Did I see mass graves? No, I didn't. I didn't see any mass graves because the mass graves were most of them were in Lithuania and Poland, and I didn't get out of the camps till I got to Germany, and I didn't see any mass graves. No, I didn't.
Did you ever have any friends that you couldn't hang out with because you were Jewish?
So, but before the war, right?
Yeah.
Before the war, were there friends you couldn't hang out with because they weren't Jewish?
No, in Lithuania, it was completely different than it is in the States here. The Jews were considered second-class citizens. The Jews lived in separate neighborhoods, went to different schools because the schools were run by the state. And I think 95% of the Lithuanians are Catholic. So the schools were all Catholic schools. The Jews had separate schools and the Lithuanians had separate schools. There was very little interaction between the Jews and the Lithuanians. We didn't speak Lithuanian at home. We speak English at home. We spoke Yiddish at home. And that's the way most of the European countries were, except maybe for Germany. The German Jews spoke German in their homes, and they considered themselves German instead of Jewish, because there were some German Jews and they brought to our camps, and they didn't know why they were there, because they said they're not Jews, they're Germans. Any other questions?
Did you find your dad after the war? Did you find your father after the war?
Yes, I did. I found my father. I didn't know my father had survived the war. They published lists of people that survived, but I never saw his, because I wasn't in the hospitals, I never saw the list. But I knew I had an uncle in Israel. I knew his name, I didn't know where he lived. So I gave his name to the Jewish agency, and they found him. And I got a letter from him stating that my father had returned to Lithuania, to our hometown. Naturally, if you survived the war, you would return to your hometown because anybody would have survived, would have returned there. So I couldn't write to my father directly because at that time Lithuania was occupied by the Russians. So I wrote to my uncle in Israel, and he wrote to he sent a letter to my father, and vice versa. In 1960, I sent my father American visas to come to the States. By that time, my father had been married and had a son. The Russians said, sure, your father can go, but his wife and his son have to stay here. Naturally, my father didn't come. In 1973, when they opened up immigration from Russia, my father went to Israel, and I used to come and visit him every couple of years. And he died in 1995, I think at the ripe old age of about 93 or 94. Any other questions? Some people ask me why I speak. Why? You know, there's people that didn't make it couldn't speak. In 1982, I read an article in the Milwaukee Journal. There was a woman in Marshville, Wisconsin. She said that the Holocaust never happened. Maybe 100,000, 200,000 people got killed. That's it. Now what happened to my extended family? Aunts, uncles, grandparents, cousins, maybe 30, 35. What happened to them? Where did they go? They take them to the moon? Where did they take them to? Lithuania had 290,000 Jews before the war. I found out after the war that 94% were killed. It's 94 out of 100. And where did the rest of the people go? So if anybody tells you that the Holocaust never happened, you got my permission to call him a liar. It did happen.
One of the questions that I wanted to ask you was, are you still religious?
Yeah, some people ask me if I believe in God. I believe in God. About maybe 8-9 months ago, I listened to NPR, National Public Radio. They had Elie Wiesel on there. Does everybody know who Elie Wiesel is? He said he was angry with God. I couldn't understand it. I don't know why. I'm not angry with God. God gives you a choice to be good or bad. God didn't do it. People did it. I still believe in God. I go to the synagogue. Not as often as I should, probably. I believe in God. God gives you a choice. The choice is up to you. Any other questions?
Has everything you went through changed you as a person?
How did your experiences change you as a person?
I don't know. Maybe it made me a better person. It probably did. Yes, because you see what hatred can do to you, unmitigated hatred can do to you. It makes you a better person, I think, because you want to treat the other person the way you want to be treated. That's the most authentic movie you can watch about the Holocaust. But at the same time, you cannot feel the terror, the aggravation, the hopelessness that the people felt that were in that movie. It's something that I can't convey to you.
Does it bother you when people say they're starving?
Does it bother you when people say they're starving? Like before lunch when someone says, oh, I'm starving. Does it bother you?
No, I know what they mean. They're hungry, but they're not starving. It's two different words. Starving and hungry, pretty far apart. Any other questions?
Howard? Mike?
Did everyone get along in the camp?
Did everyone get along in the camps?
Everybody get along in the camps? No. everybody was for themselves because you wanted to survive, you wanted to live, and you wanted to take care of yourself. And maybe if you were a close relative, like a father and son or mother and daughter, you stuck together. But as far as friendships, very few friendships developed in the camps. We're all thinking about yourself all the time. Any other questions?
Did you ever, when you were at the camps, did you ever regret being Jewish?
Did you ever feel bad that you were Jewish? I mean, did you ask yourself why this was happening to you?
No, I never did. I actually never did. Actually, one time when they were taking us from the railroad station to Stuttgart, they transferred us to a different railroad, a small railroad car, and when they were we were in open cars, and we drove by a house, and there were some kids playing in the yard, and I said to myself, why couldn't I be playing in the yard instead of being in the railroad car? But I never felt bad for being Jewish because you have no choice what you're born at. I mean, you gotta make the best of it. You accept whatever you're born with, and you got to do the best job you can. And I think that probably makes you feel good. Any other questions?
How was your life before the war?
My life before the war was pretty normal, I'd say. We lived in a small house, a two-room house, with most people that were poor. Most Jews in Lithuania were poor. I went to school. We were never hungry. My father worked in a shoe factory. My mother stayed home. I think life was normal. At least I considered it normal. And of course, it wasn't as good a life as you have here. I mean, you don't realize how good, what a wonderful life you have here. You got to appreciate it, because when you saw something else, you don't know how good it is to be in this country. It's the most wonderful country in the world. So I appreciate it every day. Any other questions?
Did you ever watch like your friend like die, or did you like see somebody you know like die?
Did you ever lose a close friend in the concentration camps? Did, like, one of your friends, did you ever lose them?
Yes, I lost a couple of friends. I had a couple of friends, boys about my age, that we went to shoot off together, and they stayed there. And I found out after the war that they took those kids and they put them on the ship, and I don't know where they were taking them. And I think the ship got bombed by, I don't know by whom, by the Americans or English, and the ship sank, and all of them died. So I haven't seen those boys were pretty close friends. Any other questions?
Howard, I know one of the questions they had was, what were the Nazis like? Were they all horrible in the camps? Were they all evil?
Well, about, I think 2 years ago or so, there was an article in the paper that they were going to deport, I think a Lithuanian, back to Lithuania, because he lied on his application. when he became a citizen here, he was actually a guard in a Nazi concentration camp. And there was an article in the paper, and a journal reporter called me up because my name was in the paper a couple of times, and she said, should we report him? I said, sure they should. Probably when he gets back to Lithuania, he probably won't get punished because he probably get a pension there. And she asked me if I knew any Germans that were decent human beings. I said, yes. In the last camp where I was, there was a guard, an older gentleman, maybe in his 60s, because the Germans started drafting him in his 60s towards the end of the war. And he gave us news. He told us to hang on. He told us when Paris fell. He told us when the Americans crossed the German border. He told us, hang on. He says, the war's not going to last much longer. He gave us hope. And he said, if the gentleman was alive today, I says, I would be honored to have him in my house. So, I have nothing against people that didn't perpetrate their atrocities. I just have something against the people that did it. In Israel, in Yad Vashem, there's an alley with trees, and every tree has a name of a Gentile person that saved the Jew. I call them heroes, because they risked their life. Because if they caught somebody hiding a Jew, the Germans would kill the Jew and kill the family that hid him too. So actually, they put their life on the line to help somebody else. And those people are heroes in my book. I don't know if I would have done that. I have no idea. But those people deserve the gratitude of the whole world. Any other questions? I know that it doesn't give me too much pleasure to talk about it. It brings back horrible memories. Of course, the most horrible things you try to forget. But I think it makes a little bit of difference if you see somebody that went through it, instead of reading books or seeing videos. It leaves a different impression on you. And I want to tell you that there's a horrible disease that's going around in this world that's been going around for thousands of years, and that's hatred. I want to tell you what a horrible disease it is. You don't know you have it until it manifests itself, and then it may be too late. I don't care if you are white, yellow, pink, with green polka dots. Our desires, our hopes, our wishes are all the same. We are born the same. We all die the same. It's what you do in between that counts. And if you treat the other human being the way you want to be treated, this will be a wonderful world. Maybe one of you could become president of the United States or president of an influential world organization. Please, don't let it happen to anybody else, because it's the most horrible thing that could happen to anybody. And this world hasn't listened, hasn't learned anything from all the horrible wars that went on. It's still going on. Still people get killed because what they believe in, or the way they look, or the color of the skin. It's the most horrible thing that can happen to anybody. So please, don't let it happen to anybody else. And I thank you very much for listening to me. Thank you.